Normally we say we take you around Dog Nation in 90 seconds. Today, maybe a bit longer than that, but this is a special edition of DN90 presented by Dixie Vodka. Score a touchdown at your next tailgate with Dixie Vodka. Made in America, raised in the South. Hello everybody, I'm Brandon Adams, obviously addressing the news of the day, and that is the intention apparently of Georgia quarterback Justin Fields to transfer. Dog Nation has confirmed that is indeed in the works for Fields here. In fact, let's bring on the man right now who brought this news to Dog Nation early on Monday morning. It is Dog Nation's Mike Griffith, who did report at DogNation.com, a piece I'll invite you to check out at the website yourself, that indeed Fields has spoken to UGA about that process, really inquiring about what would happen next as the transfer market gets ready to heat up at the conclusion here of the 2018 season, off-season, heading into 2019. Let's get ready to welcome in Mike Griffith in here right now to a special edition of DN90 presented by Dixie Vodka. Mike, know it's a busy day for you. We appreciate your coverage and sharing some of that coverage and time with us. Thanks for being with us on a special edition of DN90 presented by Dixie Vodka. How are you?
I'm doing well, DA. Thank you.
So I thought your reporting at Dog Nation was certainly very interesting this morning, if not necessarily great news for UGA fans. But given the fact that you have found out that Fields has indeed discussed this with UGA, what exactly does that mean from your perspective, and what do you expect to happen next?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens next, Brandon, because I think before the idea was that Fields would stay with the team, play in the Sugar Bowl while exploring his options, and that might still happen. But I do think the fact that this now is drawn so much national attention and a great level of scrutiny, I think this complicates matters for Georgia and for Justin Fields. I get the feeling almost the toothpaste is out of the tube, and you wonder if he'll be able to stay on the team and practice as if it were business as usual at a time when, quite frankly, his intentions have the potential to alienate his teammates and his team.
Yeah, so I think that's really interesting, and I think that you're going down the same path that I want to go down. When Dog Nation readers last night heard from Justin Fields' stepmom at DogNation.com with her insinuation to Chip Towers that no decision had been made as of yet, I think there's an optimistic reading of that from some Georgia fans of maybe Fields will eventually decide to stay, and maybe Georgia can do something in this recruiting season to also once again re-recruit Fields and get him to be a part of the team in 2019. It sounds like, though, based on the sources that you've talked to and the kind of reporting you've done on this, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like based on the information you've been able to gather, that the likelihood of Fields staying at Georgia is now becoming more remote. Is that fair to say?
I think it's fair to say that there's an NCAA portal you've got to enter into, and now the idea Justin Fields is on the open market and open to offers. Again, I would just say this. Georgia did everything they could, BA, as far as giving Fields opportunities, playing time, to the point that it actually hurt Jake Fromm. If you'll recall, Kirby didn't even name Jake Fromm a starter, and that was why Jake wasn't on a lot of preseason watch lists or first teams, because the thinking was if he hasn't even won the starting position, no one's going to name him preseason All-SEC or put him on any type of watch list. And the whole idea was to give Justin Fields every opportunity to challenge for the starting position, to the point that Kirby never really announced Jake Fromm as the starting quarterback, and in fact kept Jake Fromm from talking to the media the first month of the season. Here's a guy who just led you to the brink of a national championship if your senior safety doesn't break an assignment, and yet he's not even given the opportunity to be named a starter. From my perspective, Georgia's gone the distance with Justin Fields, and for whatever reason, they weren't, Fields wasn't willing to play this out privately or quietly. This was leaked out, unfortunately, and it really puts Georgia in a compromised position.
So let me play devil's advocate with that viewpoint just for a minute to further flesh out this topic. You mentioned the fact that Jake Fromm wasn't officially named the starting quarterback at the beginning of the season. Isn't it fair to say that maybe Fromm is more solidly Georgia's starting quarterback now than he was even at the beginning of the season? Because after all, as well as Fromm played, Justin Fields was among the premier recruits in the country for the class of 2018. And it was a competition that played out over the course of a year. And if you want to go back to the middle of the season, maybe at LSU, for instance, Maybe it wasn't a given at that point in time that Fromm truly was the better of the two quarterbacks. But when you see Fromm, the way that he plays against Florida, the numbers that he puts up against Kentucky and Auburn, Kentucky, by the way, a top 15 team on the road, Auburn, a traditional rival, and then, of course, as you said, playing well enough to beat Alabama in the SEC championship game, even though the game ultimately doesn't go Georgia's way, that Fromm actually earned the job over the course of the season. And so the examples that you cite of maybe Fromm not being fully treated as the starter at the beginning of the year was an example of Georgia giving Fields his best opportunity to win that job, and based on the performance of Fromm, it just didn't happen. How would you respond to that?
I would say you're absolutely right. I would say that, Justin Fields probably, as I wrote, I mean, he's my source tells me he's frustrated. He cannot beat out Jake Fromm. He can't beat him out in practice. He can't beat him out when he's given opportunities in the game. I mean, here's the thing, and I know that there's a lot of people that really appreciate Justin Fields' talent, and I'm one of them. I think from a ceiling standpoint, he's got a higher ceiling than Jake Fromm. But there's a reality to this, and that's that Jake Fromm is the better quarterback right now. And you can't put a lineup on the field based on potential. I mean, there's other players at other positions that I would say have a higher ceiling than the guy that we're playing ahead of them. Look at inside linebacker, for example. Do I think that, that there's more talent in the freshman class than what was on the field this year? Yes. But they weren't ready to play. Neither was Justin Fields. And ultimately, whether you like the call or not, and I know that 95% of the people don't, Kirby Smart put Georgia's national championship hopes in the hands of Justin Fields on that fake punt play. The bottom line was Justin Fields had the ball in his hands with a chance to make a game-winning play, and he froze up. Not only did he not get out of that call or call a timeout, but when the ball was snapped, he panicked. He didn't throw it. He ran into the middle of the line of scrimmage. Playmakers make plays. Justin Fields was not ready for the moment. The entire Georgia season was put on his shoulders. Rightly or wrongly, it was. And he didn't produce. I don't know what more of an opportunity a true freshman could ask for, because if it were me, I would have rather had Jake Fromm take the snap on 4th and 11 and run a conventional play. But Kirby Smart believed in Justin Fields enough to put him out there with the game on the line and run a play they had practiced all year long.
I think that's really well said, Mike. I really do. And it kind of goes against something that James Hayes says in our Facebook comment section. The coaching staff handcuffed Justin Fields here this season. He did receive limited playing time and limited play call options when he was in the game, but I don't think it's an example of, to use the phrase of the commenter, being handcuffed because of, as you said, Fields was entrusted with Georgia's most important play of the season. In fact, Mike, while I've got you on the phone, let me also let you hear from Fields that night in the SEC championship, a night after he had just been involved in the biggest play for Georgia, and Fields couldn't even confirm that he was planning on being back for Georgia again the following season. Was Fields already thinking about his next destination when he was taking that snap on 4th and 11? Here's what Fields told us in the locker room after the game. Take a listen to this.
Can you guarantee you'll be back at Georgia next season?
This season's not over with, so, I mean, we still have one more game left. So we're really going to come back on Monday, just practice and just focus on the next game.
Fields, Mike, is under no obligation to guarantee his UGA return, but the fact that he couldn't right there doesn't seem to coexist very well with the fact that he was entrusted with such an important play. So it sounds like you think that Kirby Smart made a mistake in terms of how he handled that 4th and 11, allowing Fields to be the guy on the field for such a pivotal moment.
No question, Brandon. I thought your interview was very telling. I mean, that's a guy that, listening to that audio right there is the smoking gun. And you know what, really? I go all the way back to fall camp BA when his dad was talking to ESPN and talking about whether it's a roll of the dice, whether or not Kirby would give his son a chance to play as Saban had Tua. It's almost as if the Fields family wanted this job handed to their son, and until he was given the quarterback position, they weren't going to be happy. And if you're Kirby Smart, though, you've got to protect the integrity of that clubhouse. You can't give anyone promised playing time. You've got to earn it. It doesn't matter if you're a 5-star or a 3-star. How about Demetrius Robertson? He transferred all the way back from Cal to Georgia, and we didn't see him do much on the field, but we don't see him talking about his transfer or quitting the team or going somewhere else. So I think Kirby Smart did everything he could to give Justin Fields an opportunity, but I think that family realizes that they have leverage, and they're using it, and it's unfortunate, but I don't think it's anyone's fault. If Justin Fields was good enough, he would have played, and he would have had the confidence to stay and know that he could beat out Jake Fromm. But as it was, I think Justin Fields realizes he can't beat out Jake Fromm, and better to go somewhere else and go through spring drills as Easton did a year ago.
Mike, a couple more minutes with you, if you don't mind, here on this very special edition of DN90 presented by Dixie Vodka. It's Dog Nation's Mike Griffith on the phone. My name is Brandon Adams. Taj Rajim in our comment section does blame Kirby Smart, though, for how all this field stuff plays out. And, Mike, there is a line of thought here that maybe Kirby should have had the foreknowledge not to bring Fields in to begin with. That he was never going to be able to coexist because he was going to have expectations of playing right away, and that this was, as many people from the national media had already had some speculation about when Fields signed last year, that this was never going to be a marriage, Fromm and Fields in the same team together, Fields as a backup. It was never going to be able to work. Should Kirby Smart have reconsidered even signing Justin Fields in your mind?
No, because had Fromm gone down with an injury, Fields was about as good of an insurance.
We may have lost our phone connection with Mike Griffith. We'll see if we can get him back on the line here, because I do want him to finish his answer. There's another point that I want to bring up with Mike. We may have gotten into a little bit of a bad sell with Mike. We'll come back and do a couple quick minutes with him on this very special edition of DN90 presented by Dixie Vodka. But I think it's really interesting how Mike doesn't hesitate at all when you ask him, hey, should they have reconsidered even bringing in Fields? He says, no. If an injury goes down, this is Justin Fields' team. Much the same way that Fromm emerged after Jacob Easton's injury in 2017, had the the football god, so to speak, the luck of that's inherent in the game. Had it played out much the same way, Justin Fields could have maybe experienced the same thing. It sounds like what Mike is saying. I'm going to give him a chance to finish his answer here in a moment. It sounds like what Mike is saying is this was a risk worth taking. I think the problem with that, from my perspective, and Nate Thomas brings this up in our Facebook comment section, is when you see the video that emerges from WSB TV Channel 2 Zach Klein of Fields' dissatisfaction already after the South Carolina game. We'll show you that in a moment. I think it almost makes it wonder if any of this was ever going to be avoidable. So, Mike, I am curious about you finishing your answer. You were emphatic very quickly to say no, it was a risk worth taking because it could have been Fields' team had Fromm gotten injured. As I said before, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would love to give you a chance to finish your answer if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's exactly why, because, Justin Fields was, not only the great potential and upside, what if he had proven better than Jake Fromm? What if he had picked up the system more quickly? Or what if Jake Fromm had gotten injured, and then you would have still, I believe, been a very competitive team with Justin Fields. So, you take a chance, you bring him in, you manage it fairly, you don't let it become a distraction. I thought Kirby and the Bulldogs did a great job not letting this become a distraction. They managed this in a championship way. It just so happens that Justin Fields is early enough in his career where he can still transfer and have a lot of success. That's the difference between this and Jalen Hurts, and why Hurts stuck it out. I dare say if had Hurts kept the job and Tua not gotten that opportunity, I think you would have seen Tua transfer from Alabama.
So along those lines, Mary Justice brings this up in the comment section, Mike, of the fact that Alabama's two-headed monster at quarterback seems to have worked out better, at least for the moment, than Georgia's has. We don't know what the future entails there in terms of where Jalen Hurts may go after the season, but right now, Alabama fans are certainly a lot happier with the combination of Tua and Hurts than Georgia fans are at the moment with the combination of Fromm and Fields. Why do you think it's worked out better for Alabama than it has for Georgia? Ultimately, what's the difference there?
Because Tua turned out to be a better quarterback than Hurts, and Fields didn't mature or get better as quickly as Tua did. And Fromm is a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. Fromm's a more capable quarterback. When Tua came into the Alabama offense, Brandon, it became more diversified and better, and they were able to tap into more weapons because of Tua's ability. He should have won the Heisman Trophy. People forget he scored 21 points on Georgia in 3 quarters, and the Oklahoma quarterback scored 21 points in Army in 4 quarters. But I digress here. Because Tua's a better quarterback than Hurts, And while one day Fields may be better than Fromm, he has not yet proven to be. So that's the difference. Fromm gives you more options and makes the Georgia offense more diverse. Fields is more like Hurts at this stage of his career in the sense that he wasn't able to operate the offense as efficiently as Fromm, whereas Tua proved to be a much more efficient quarterback than Hurts.
Let me address one more subject with you, Mike, here on DN90, presented by Dixie Vodka. We appreciate your time. We know you've got a lot of coverage left to go today, so we're thankful that you've shared some of that time with us. I want to make sure I'm really fair to Justin Fields on this. As I said earlier this morning on Dog Nation Daily, I don't think this video shows the best of who Justin Fields is. I believe he's better than what is apparently seen in the video, but WSB TV Channel 2 Zach Klein released on Twitter last night some video of Fields after the South Carolina game. It's Georgia's SEC opener in just the second game of Justin Fields' college career. And on the video, Klein reports that Fields can be heard uttering expletives, essentially complaining about his role in the game, the fact that he was only allowed to hand the football off in the late stages of the game in what was a blowout win for Georgia. Mike, as I said before, I do believe that Fields is probably better than the attitude on display in this video, and this is just an unfortunate timing of the moment captured there of Justin Fields. But there's also an element of this that has to be addressed. Was the atmosphere around Fields that toxic from the very beginning of the season that he would have an expectation of more playing time in just his second college game, given what Fromm had done a year ago? If so, it's hard for me to imagine that there weren't some reverberations of that felt in the Georgia locker room. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't think that Georgia allowed it to happen in the locker room. I think there was a lot of pressure on Justin Fields to produce, in part because of the high level of exposure, in part because of the great ratings he received. You know, this is a guy who's never been told you're not good enough. And suddenly you're at a place where you're not good enough, where it's undeniable that Jake Fromm understands the offense better than you, and Jake Fromm throws the ball with better timing. And it's hard to go from being that guy, that Superman, where everybody tells you you're the best ever, and now right before your eyes every day there's a player who's outperforming you and outcompeting you in practice. And that's hard to swallow. And I think that Justin really struggled with that, as a lot of young people would. So I think the frustration had a lot to do with the fact, that Justin Fields had to deal with not being the best quarterback on the team, and I think he still has a hard time accepting and dealing with that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let me rattle through a couple really quick things before we let you go. Blind Squirrel Sports on YouTube says that Georgia's going to have to address, the momentum of this Fields situation with big news and recruiting tomorrow. Mike, I know you're going to be covering everything that Kirby Smart has to say from Athens about that tomorrow. We'll look forward, if you're a Georgia fan, to hearing some good news on the recruiting front about that. But how about those Sugar Bowl preparations? I mean, as you've said last week on Dog Nation Daily, and I think you were absolutely right when you said this, that symbolically anyway, the Sugar Bowl is the first game of Georgia's 2019 season because it'll be the game that shapes the perception of how Georgia's viewed next year. Does this fiasco involving Justin Fields injure Georgia's ability to truly focus and prepare for Texas in the Sugar Bowl?
No, if anything, I think it brings the team together because right now the Kirby dynasty is threatened. Suddenly you don't have the Superman second quarterback that's going to be there to take the reins after Jake Fromm leaves. It's a bit of a question. I'm not convinced that Kirby can't pull a rabbit out of his hat because I think this is a very attractive school to play football at, and I think some eyes are going to light up and some guys are going to think twice before going forward because now all of a sudden you've got a chance to go to Georgia and be the one that inherits this incredible throne behind this unbelievable offensive line, this talented group of receivers, and this proven coaching staff. But right now, and not just Justin Fields, I mean, all this Justin Fields talk is making us forget all about Luke Ford. There's some questions there. But, yeah, suddenly the Kirby dynasty, there's questions. Can Georgia really move forward? Can this be a straw that breaks the back? Is this going to interrupt what we thought would be a long lineage of championship-level program football? So there's some questions now, B.A. When these type of crises happen, I think it brings the team closer together. And, oh, by the way, your defensive coordinator in this game is a guy by the name of Kirby Smart. And the last time he lined up across the field from Tom Herman in the Sugar Bowl, he got his butt stomped by Ohio State. So you better believe that Kirby Smart is taking some personal inventory here. I really expect Georgia to band together, and I really expect to see the Bulldogs at their best in New Orleans on January 1st.
Mike, it's fascinating. We appreciate your coverage of all of this. We'll look forward to reading you more at dognation.com today. I know you've got some more video stuff planned today as well. We'll be following all of that. This is a story expected to take more twists and turns along the way. And, Mike, we appreciate you keeping us up to date on all of it. We'll look forward to speaking to you soon.
Yeah, some great reporting on your part as well, B.A. Thank you.
Mike Griffith, great to talk to you. And, of course, he and Chip Towers both all over this story, and Jeff Sintel on the recruiting angle of this as well. I'm going to take a few more comments before we sign off, and then we're going to have to get off the air because we've got more Dog Nation video coverage coming up later on today. We want to give some space for some of that to take place. Before I kind of wrap up with a few comments here on DN90 presented by Dixie Vodka, let me address something that Antonio Jones said in the YouTube comment section. I think he's 100% right. That ultimately, I'm going to have a problem with a lot of the stuff involved in the story. I may not always like how the national media covers this, and when I don't, I'm going to speak up and say that. I may not always like how hangers-on and grifters, that want to attach themselves to this story, try to, spin a yarn, inject race into this. I addressed it on Dog Nation Daily. I'm not going to like a lot of that kind of stuff, and when I see reason to criticize, I will criticize it. But ultimately, as Antonio Jones points out in the YouTube comment section, my beef here is not with Justin Fields. It's not. And it's not with Justin Fields' family. Fields wants to play. His family wants to watch him play. And if he can't play at Georgia, then I sort of wish him well to go play somewhere else. I don't want him to go to Florida. I don't want him to go to Auburn. I don't want him to go to one of these teams that Georgia will play. But ultimately, I've got no beef with Fields. I think that Georgia had two quarterbacks. I think it's made its choice. For now, that choice is Jake Fromm, and I think Georgia has made the right choice in regards to that. If being a backup is not good enough for Fields, then by all means, I wish him well moving forward. So there'll be plenty of reasons to criticize elements of this story as it develops, but I don't foresee any instance where we're criticizing Fields in particular for this. He is just a young man trying to make the most of this opportunity that he has at this stage of his life, and who could fault him for that? All right, a couple quick comments before we get ready to go. Here on DN90, and don't forget there's more Dog Nation video coverage coming later on. Christopher Metcalf says, I feel sorry for all the junk surrounding this young man. Yeah, obviously, there's a way of looking at someone like Fields and say, oh, what a glamorous life. And let me tell you something. I do think it'd be pretty fun to be a quarterback, good enough to play at a school like Georgia. I would imagine that's a pretty good life. However, there is an element in times like this of, can you really believe anything that anyone tells you? Some lawyer knocks on your door and says, hey, I can help you become eligible somewhere else. You just got to trust me and do everything that I say. Good luck with that. How many people have been glad that they trusted lawyers over the course of time? But a lot of people are going to tell Fields a lot of things of, hey, just trust me. This is the place for you. This is what you ought to do. Let me tell you what you ought to do. Here's a little free advice. You know how taxing that must be, and how I don't want to overuse a word like traumatic, but certainly anxiety producing to constantly have people tugging on you and saying, here's what's best for you. One of the things we try to do around here, Dog Nation is obviously in the role that I have. I speak to other Georgia fans. We won't pretend to not have selfish desires. Selfishly, I wish Justin Fields would stay at Georgia and be the backup quarterback next season. Georgia would be better for it. Fields may determine that's not what's best for him. I certainly wouldn't tell him, well, you ought to just give up on what's best for you and satisfy my needs as a fan because I want to see Georgia have a really good number 2 quarterback. I would never pretend that Fields owes me that or even owes Kirby Smart that. That's not the way that I feel. But in terms of Fields deciding what's best for him, there is a lot of pressure from people who won't be quite so forthcoming about what's in their own best interest and how Fields' potential best interest aligns with that. All right, a couple other comments here. Brittany Leanne says no one cares about race. Fromm has proved himself. There is obviously going to be an attempt on some people, as I like to say, the bubble of Dog Nation. There's going to be an attempt on some people outside the bubble of Dog Nation to kind of inject that into the story. And it's going to be for 2 reasons. A, for people who think they have Fields' best interest at mind, they may view this as the proper leverage they need to get what they want. For some people in the media, the idea of that's just going to be too juicy of a storyline to disregard. But I think those of us closer to the story know the real situation. Fields is a good quarterback. Fromm is a good quarterback. Left to their own devices, they both could be good quarterbacks for Georgia. But in a fair and square competition, as of right now, Georgia's made its choice. It's not a static decision. If Fields were to say, he may reemerge as Georgia's choice, and he may eventually prove himself to be the better of the two quarterbacks. But as it stands right now, as I said on Dog Nation Daily this morning, this is a pretty conventional football story. Let's see. Danny McDougal IV says it would be an open competition next year too. If he learns the offense, he will start. I think it's a mistake, though, to view this as simply a referendum on what Fields is or isn't doing. There's another quarterback involved with this as well. And I think that in the initial stages of the Fromm Fields discussion, we probably all a little too guilty of focusing on Fields and looking at what he's capable of doing because he was the new kid on the block, right? There's always going to be a fascination, not just with freshman quarterbacks, but rookies, new players in all sports. There's always going to be a fascination with the hot prospect, who's new. So the commenter says if Fields learns the offense, he will start. But there's another quarterback working and growing and getting better here too. So Fields could work and learn and grow and get better, but it still may not be enough to eclipse Fromm, who's also trying to do the same thing. And ultimately, when position groups work the way they're supposed to work, that competition makes the entire team better. But at quarterback, for a multitude of reasons, sometimes that competition just runs players off in a way that it doesn't for other positions. Let me get a few YouTube comments. So YouTube's kind of a mess right now, so let me pop over to a Facebook here for a moment and say Mike Mazzell says that Fields should have been red-shirted. I don't know that satisfies this. I don't know that whatever desire Fields may be expressing right now, if he indeed is truly intent to transfer, I don't know that a red shirt would have satisfied that, and the opportunity to red shirt this upcoming season in 2019 might have been there. And then Fromm either moves on to the NFL after the 2019 season, or maybe Fields has a chance to win that job in 2020 as a player who's more older and just been around football a little more. Kirby Smart told us this, though, back in the summer, that keeping quarterbacks around and keeping guys happy was going to be a real challenge, that we're in an age in which quarterbacks try to transfer. Kirby Smart seemingly knew what he was signing up for when he went down the road with Justin Fields, and unfortunately, I'm not sure it's working out in the worst-case scenario, but it's working out no better than any pessimist would have assumed. Emory David Davis says there will be good players ahead of him anywhere he goes. That's probably true. That's one of the reasons why some quarterbacks decide that not transferring is in their best interest. And even though selfishly I would hope that Fields does assume that, just because that's a representation of my selfish desires doesn't mean there isn't at least some argument to be made for the devil that you know being better than the devil that you don't know. The scenario that you face at Georgia and the challenges involved with that could be better than what you get into going somewhere else. Because ultimately, I think that James Coley's quarterback's coach, Jim Chaney's offensive coordinator, Kirby Smart is a great mentor, leader, CEO-style head coach. I do think they can prepare Justin Fields for the NFL, even if he's not playing a lot until his final couple seasons on the roster. I feel confident that Georgia can prepare him, and I don't know if I feel that same level of confidence about some of the other programs he might be considering. All right, we have got a lot more coverage coming at DogNation.com. It'll be on video. We'll have Chip and Griff teaming up together, Chip Towers, Mike Griffith, later on to express their thoughts on everything that we know to this point about Justin Fields. And as news breaks, we'll be here to cover it for you as well. But it's not just on video. It's also at DogNation.com, or as I like to say, the world-famous DogNation.com, and the forum, which has really been popping the last couple of days with a lot of thoughts and insight and rumors and everything else. You can check that out at forum.dognation.com. We'll also be back tomorrow with a DN90 presented by Dixie Vodka. When I'm fixing to fix a drink, I choose Dixie Vodka because it is the South's best tasting vodka. But you know what? Don't just take my word for it. Try it for yourself. Today may be a pretty good day to try it. You can check them out online and find recipes at DixieVodka.com, or you can go find a bottle at your favorite liquor store. It is Dixie Vodka, made in America, raised in the South. We'll see you again tomorrow for a more traditional version of DN90.